Hi, my name's Dee, and welcome to Untitled Tarot, and welcome to our bi-weekly look at the lunation. And of course, we've got quite a large one at the moment. The first of the new set of eclipses in the Taurus Scorpio axis. But before we get on to that, I've got two announcements to make. One, I am behind with my monthly readings. I have been eclipsed already, so I will try and get the November readings out before the end of November, but they'll be relevant for whenever they're relevant for. And two, which David will back me up. Hi, David, by the way.
Hello. Hi, nice to be here.
There's I got a prediction right. I am so chuffed. The last full moon video. I mean, I'm not chuffed because of what it was, but the last full moon video, I saw that there was an aspect made by one of the Goetic demons with a planet being in its rulership and another planet being in its decan by night, that there would be some form of martial conflict on water that I thought was going to, because it was a by night aspect, I assumed it would be where nighttime was during the full moon. So I was assuming like towards China, Taiwan, whatever. Absolutely not. No. It was on our own doorstep. I believe it happened in the hours of darkness, but I have yet to confirm this. But the French nicked one of our fishing boats, and it caused quite a diplomatic confrontation, let's put it that way, between England and France, because we're well known for getting on really, really well together. And so yet again, fishing became an issue, but basically they took over and captured one of our boats. And it's a weird thing to actually say another country has captured one of our boats, but that's what occurred. So yes, I got something right. I have finally found that there is definitely a value in me chasing, looking at the Shem HaMephorash and the Goetic spirits in the start, and I will stop beating my own chest now. And welcome to the show, David Fischer, our resident astrologer. How are you doing, David? You're allowed to talk now.
Hey Dee, thanks for that introduction. We totally spaced down in the last forecast video that we were going to mention this. But yeah, it was fun to see your excitement when you told me the news. And it's really, as you said, that like the conflict show up a few days, I think it was after the lunation, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was actually about 4 days before the new moon video that it happened.
Right, but was it within the cycle?
Into the lunation period, but before the new moon wiped all those energies away. So what you got for us today? Eclipse season. To quote Anne Ortley, the eclipses are coming, the eclipses are coming. And speaking from personal experience, they're not coming, they're here. There's
So let's take a look. Let's dive into the chart a little bit so you can see the disposition of the planets. Well, this is it. Basically, you've got a few interesting things that we are going to cover in this forecast. We're going to talk about Mars coming out of the beams of the sun, which is important because it's in a phase, it's in a status called phasis, meaning it's quite strong. Its significations become quite potent, meaning that they can bring about Mars's agenda much more efficiently. So you think to yourself, what does Mars like to do? For instance, what would it like to do in your life, especially looking at the houses that it rules in your chart, and where Scorpio falls in your chart, what it's doing to achieve those things. Those are going to be pretty prominent matters in your life right now, in your current narrative, and in your personality. Your Martian traits might be exacerbated right now if you have Mars, for instance, ruling your ascendant, Scorpio rising, Aries rising, and things like that. We're also going to talk about a little bit its sextile to Venus in Capricorn, which is Mars's exaltation. So you can see there is some Martian reference there still. And that's an aspect that's going to continue for quite some time because Venus is also slowing down to station later in the month, in December. And also there is a square between Mercury and Jupiter, and there's the fact that the moon is occurring in the same sign as Uranus, that with an eclipse. So I wanted to start first talking about eclipses a little bit, but do you want to comment anything about the preview?
Not for the moment. No, you crack on.
Okay. So Now, the full moon is going to happen in the sign of Venus, and Venus is stationing retrograde later in December, meaning that we are going to revise a lot of topics, Venusian topics in our lives, in our Capricorn house, whatever that falls in your chart. So you have the full moon falling in this Venusian sign, bringing about some moment of clarity in relation to those Venusian topics, but it's the beginning of a narrative that we are going to develop throughout the cycle of eclipses happening in Taurus and Scorpio, which you can see hasn't started yet if you know your astrology, if you know what you're looking at in the chart. In this chart, you see these nodes, yeah, the North Node and the South Node. They always walk backwards, and they are about to ingress into Scorpio and Taurus, activating that axis for the next year and a half as the new set of signs for the eclipses to happen in. So eclipses, they bring these narratives that begin when the first eclipses happen in that pair of signs, and that is concluded when they're leaving out. So for instance, you can look back at the past couple of years in your life since the nodes have ingressed Sagittarius and Gemini, and you can see the eclipses happening since that time in those signs, initiating a narrative. And every time they happened, every 6 months, you see that narrative being developed in a way that steers your life, importantly, in a different direction, relating to the topics of the houses that they affect. So you have to go into your chart, see what houses the eclipses or the nodes are transiting or the eclipses are happening in, and try to recall in those from 6 to 6 months, what was happening in those intervals, between those intervals, and how the themes developed regarding the topics around those places. That's a basic introduction to eclipses, just so you know. So they are always a cycle of 18 years to go around the whole zodiac. Every 9 years they happen, therefore, in the same set of signs, just in reverse order, because they are an axis, they move like this. Yeah. And so every 9 years is like you have, which is not that often, you have to admit, every once a decade, you have that experience of having a particular area of your life completely changed by those eclipsy natures. So volatility, instability, uncertainty, shadowy figures appearing and disappearing from your life as quick as they came in, because it seemed like they were fated to just bring in a new perspective to you. That's the kind of feeling that you have when eclipses are happening in a determined house on top of a particular planet. If it's happening on your Venus, for instance, we're giving it the example here because it's connected, it might have to do with your relationships, and especially the social dynamics that dictate your relationships and what you accept in your relationships. And this is a concept that I'm bringing into Taurus here from Dana Lynn Knuckles. She's the People's Oracle. You can find her in any of the social medias like the YouTube channel, Instagram, Twitter. I don't think she's in Facebook though, but she has those other three, and she's really the sidereal astrologer, as she puts it herself. You can check her stuff out. She's amazing, and you're gonna love it. Just note that she follows a different set of signs than we do. She follows the sidereal pattern of zodiac. We follow the tropical here in these analyses. So still, she brings this vision to Taurus and the Venusian ideal that's very interesting, which she applies only to the sidereal zodiac, but I have found to work as well with the tropical approach. That Taurus is that expectation, the social expectations that make you agree to certain dynamics and concede a bit of your power, because you see the equality in the situation. You see how you can provide to the situation some fertility so it stays harmonious and the ground stays fertile for the thing to be, because Taurus is a fixed sign, it wants to stabilize things, it doesn't initiate things. So if you have something in Taurus like Mars, which is not happy in Taurus, you would expect to have someone who gives up their own power and ability for others because they feel pressure to. They feel like the only way to individuate and to be an individual is to hide their true intentions. It's kind of a reversed Mars. Mars wants to act, Mars will act, but if it's using Venusian ways, it cannot sever. It's given the task to harmonize. So Mars will try to harmonize by hiding, by not concealing, by not being straightforward, not being so Martian as it wanted to be, conforming to social pressures, in other words, of its environment. Why am I explaining so much?
On the surface conforming. By the way you were saying that,
yes.
On the surface conforming.
On the surface conforming. For instance, women must wear lipstick. If they're wearing a lipstick, they must be a woman. That kind of simplistic thinking that we expect society to conform to in order to even validate an individual, as a human being, as an equal, in other words. So when we have eclipses happening in Taurus and Scorpio, we see those particular narratives. And again, this is a lot based on Dana's work, because she's all the time talking about these patterns and these things and these bounds and these matters. So she's always saying how the Scorpio and Taurus axes are always bringing this, how do I adapt versus how does that make me feel like I don't belong? Because if you're a queer person, for instance, and you're obliged to adapt to a gender conformist, role, you might do that, but it will take a toll on your own personality. You have to be traumatized, which means here exclude a part of yourself and tell yourself that that part of you is bad, and therefore become afraid of that part of you. That's Scorpio. Scorpio is that part of you that is afraid and telling you, I am not putting up with the shit anymore, because there is a fine line that has been crossed a long time ago that has not been respected, and that I am not allowing to be crossed anymore. That's Scorpio. I'm going to sever this, because it's not only trying to make me conform, it's trying to make me annul myself. So this is imperative for my conformism. I cannot conform to that. Yeah. And eclipses in Taurus, they bring awareness and clarity around where, especially lunar eclipses, where we have been neglecting our bodies, we have been neglecting our needs, our necessities, in order to maintain some sort of establishment. Remember the Pope card, for those of you who do tarot, or the Hierophant. You have that card representing the Taurus, for those of you who like those modern associations to signs. And in this case, that's a lot of the meaning behind it, is those structures, those larger structures that come from the top of society downwards, and that we are all obliged to conform, even though it doesn't encompass all of our individualities. And there are systems that we can build to integrate more multiple, scenarios where people feel like they belong, even though they are not equal, or they are not the same, in the sense that they're in each in their own individuals. But yeah, and again, this is only the start, because Venus is not even retrograde yet. The beginning of this year, you must realize that we are having this eclipse now with Venus just ingressed in its shadow, because it's going to station direct around 11 to 12 degrees of Capricorn in late January, around January 29, if I'm not mistaken. And it's not going to leave Capricorn until early March. So we will have, and I think April even, I'm not even sure, but it will stay there for a long time. And while it's there, it's going to be almost all the time between these eclipses that it's going to be in its shadow and in Capricorn and conjunct Mars. They're going to hold hands and walk together into Aquarius later this year and early next year. So the rulers of Taurus and Scorpio, the signs where the next set of eclipses are happening and where we are going to see a preview now in Taurus, are going to be holding hands in a sign where Mars has a lot of dignity because it's exalted in Capricorn, creating something new. They're going to be bringing this idea of, I need to renew these areas of my life. I need to bring a different scenario, completely new whole structure change, because I have been conforming to things that kill my personality and my individuality.
So this is the
going to be the
long-term prognosis that you're looking at, because I'm going
long-term prognosis, but it's important to give this long-term prognosis now because we will have this Venus retrograde as bringing about these matters for the whole beginning of the year that are going to be developed further when the eclipses actually start by next year, when we actually have full on sets of eclipses there.
Because looking at the chart earlier, one thing I noticed is that there's due to the degree images of where the actual lunar eclipse is happening, but also with you giving such weight towards Mars, there's a modern aspect. Now, please forgive me if I fall over my teeth while I'm trying to say this. There's a modern aspect called the quindecile, which is either 36 degrees or 165. Now, I don't like the fact that they've got the same name. So the person who coined, the astrologer that coined that first 165 degrees, I totally forget his name, but he was German. And so it was the 24 is what he called the aspect. So we have Moon 24 to Mars, which is a point of obsession. Yes, sorry, we fell over trying to say this earlier.
It's amazing. Yeah, I love it.
It's a point, and as you can tell, I do not speak German, but it shows a point of obsession. So very much Moon Virund, that aspect to the Mars, is showing where we are getting obsessed with our feelings. Now, there's a lot about in this chart about standing up for this is what I feel and this is what I say. We've got a finger of God there, a yod formed by that Mars-Venus relationship aimed directly at Black Moon Lilith. So there's that oomph there of pay attention to this. And also Mars is on Lilith's 12th part. So there's that other little signpost that says, pay attention to this Mars Lilith business, because there's that aspect already there and the relationship with the 12th part. So whatever we are getting to feel during this eclipse, and to all the wonderful depths that the full moon can bring and the eclipse can bring, is something that we're going to feel now, then review, then do over again. So that it's opening up a wonderful time for self-improvement. And this is carried on in the actual symbols of where this lunar eclipse is handling. Let me just move a few things around my screen so I can still see you. Because the Omega symbol, I found out where they're from now, they were channeled by John Sandbach, is indeed a man channeling a set of degree symbols, which indicates you're learning new ways, new language to describe your environment. You're understanding how the energy is working and perceiving overall patterns in life in all of their complexity. You might find it difficult, though, to enter directly into that experience because you can't decide where or how to jump in. But with this Venus retrograde coming up, that's okay. You don't have to jump in right now. You can just feel it, because you will get a chance to review it, and then you'll get a chance to check that you did it right the first time again. You need to learn under this degree how to put aside thought and act spontaneously, even if it means falling flat on your face. Now, the Chandra symbol for this, here we've got a man making candles out of beeswax, which is all about the candles spreading light in a natural fashion. So there's that natural understanding, natural sort of understanding and interpretation, like that degree energy system, degree energy symbols. Degree symbols. Let me just say degree symbols. I'm getting too many words in my head. But there's being able to, we get to see our own internal chaos and our own internal, I want this and I'm obsessed about this feeling, so that we can review it and understand it either in a new light or in the same light that we already use, but just hadn't applied it to that situation? Would you say that's backed up by what you see in the chart, David?
Yes, Mars is coming out of the rays of the sun, as we said earlier, so that means a new clarity about something. Again, Scorpio is that severing and separating from things that were trying to overpower your sense of individuality, and basically threaten your body, your own mind, the way your mind works, you know, the way you can trust it's your defense mechanism, basically, Scorpio. So it's the way your mind works to understand that certain lines with you cannot be crossed. And Scorpio is those lines. Scorpio is like that feeling in your gut that you have of, this is just like that all the time. So you can see how it's associated with trauma a lot, because it is many times that part of you that when you have planets there, you've been traumatized as a child, and that part of you has been denied that lunar sense of stability that provides comfort and fertility for things to grow in a productive manner, and that generates insecurity. So now we see Mars coming out of the rays of the sun in Scorpio, with Mercury also there. Mercury also signifies debate and contests, not like Mars signifying wars. It's literally debates and differences of opinions and destabilization of a particular argument, for instance. And so we have multiple scenarios and ways to validate this feeling that we are getting that our lines have been crossed, and that something is not as safe as we had planned before, as we thought it would have been. And that's also Mercury bringing the destabilization and the debate quality and the superior square that's making to Saturn and Jupiter much as Mars and the Sun are by sign, and Mercury still applying to Jupiter. We are seeing how the details of the plan are not being sustained by the actions that we have taken. And now we see the need to redirect the plan somewhere where we can grow. So you see that it's a closing square in relation to Saturn. So there is this storyline, that's developed the whole year with Mars. That's been when Mars was conjunct, when Mars was going through, conjunct Uranus in Taurus, which was around inauguration day in the American elections, like Biden was taking power in the US. And then Leo, the Leo opposition, which also had a Venus containment. Venus was besieged by the malefics then. She was opposed by Saturn on one side and applying to a conjunction to Mars on the other. And that besiegement was long. I got sick at the time. Venus is my ruler of the year, so these things happen. And now we are seeing the closing up of this story. So January, June to July, and now this. We are having this story developed where we try to assert ourselves. We try to take some action to diverge from what we felt was pressuring us. And that action has given its fruit. However, we see with the full phase, with the opposition. However, now we see the need of adapting the initial plan. Now we don't feel as familiar to the plans that we had earlier in the year. It's important with this whole Scorpio thing, especially with Mars being so powerful, for you to think, what don't I identify with in that plan anymore? What hasn't happened as I expected it? Because that is making me frustrated right now. And this is the moon eclipsed in its exaltation. It's things that you have planned to give you a certain feedback, that you have engaged your actions and your attitudes towards to have a certain feedback. And now you're getting the clarity that, well, even though I was trying to convince myself that I've gotten to this place where I've achieved at least the minimum of what I had set out myself to do, I still don't have the adequate materials, and I still don't have the adequate state of mind, status. People still don't perceive me in the way I expected. And that's the eclipse quality of that exaltation. You expect something to be there to give you that grounding, but it's not there when you look at it.
That's really interesting that you were saying that, because it's not just the plans and the actual actions, but would you say that this can go as far as looking at the motivations for those plans? Like I said, that moon, Mars, but also the degree angel for this eclipse is, if you want to share the screen, not share the screen for a second, and I'll just show the card here. Let me see myself, so it's not reflecting. But Yael, or Yael, and no, I cannot pronounce this. And the one for the sun is even worse. And you can barely hear the difference between them. But Yael is all about, we've seen Yael before, about letting go, about mental force. So at the same time, we're letting go, dumping something, but we are continuing on with something else. Now, one good thing, the powers of Yael, is the power to heal sorrow. When you have an emotional pain that lingers, and pains that linger tend to direct your actions even when you're not aware of it, especially if it was caused by the loss of a loved one, then this angel can actually help heal your sorrow. And also, if you are suffering from regret, this angel can help you move on and focus on the present and on the future. That's really interesting in all the context of everything that you were saying so far, with Mars's position in this chart, the Scorpio-Taurus axis, the talking about boundaries, and the fact that we're going to get to review everything. So I think that there's an element with this new moon of whatever area of life it's falling in, whatever house is your Taurus house, then you're getting opportunity to do a bit of navel gazing. And if you've been lying to yourself about something, and I don't mean that in a judgmental way, because we all do it.
Just think about those topics that house signifies, right?
Yeah. If you've been lying to yourself about something, it's going to, probably the wrong thing to say, see the light of day when we're talking about an eclipse, but you're going to get to see it, you're going to get to experience it, then you're going to get to review it and see if you want to do things differently.
Absolutely. And that's because Mars is also coming out of the rays of the sun. You will see that your actions are going to be much more productive than they have been so far. There might have been a feeling since Mars plunged into the rays of the sun, which happened quite a while ago. I think it was while they were still in Virgo, that Mars went into the range of 15 degrees to the sun, and then they conjoined in Libra. And now that it has been coming out of the rays of the sun for a long time now. And it feels like it's dragging, and it's been like 2 or 3 months in the process. And we might as well have felt like, as even though we have been applying effort and thought to how we are going to get out of a certain situation, it's as if life itself is not giving us those roads to follow. It's only this one that's slow, and only this one that if you try to apply too much force, as you are being invited to do, is almost like a temptation while Mars is debilitated under the beams and in Libra, to act impulsively without thinking in the consequences long term. Now you see that it was worth the wait. Now you see that even though it was not comfortable, it was still the best course of action to keep yourself thinking and rethinking and reimagining and replanning and adapting in the low-keyest way possible, if we can say
you mean
like
as
that.
in low key or
low key?
Low key.
Low key. No, low key.
Right.
So, and that's because although Mars is very fast, moving close to the sun, it can therefore provide lots of its significations. None of those are much sustainable, and they are rash, decisions generally, which are not supposed to be taken under this influence. So, and if necessary, try to do it when Mars is in one of its own bounds, one of its own signs, and things like that, because then it's going to be more protected.
Just explain about the bounds for...
there are divisions within the 12 signs of the zodiac that are attributed, that have rulership attributed to each of the 5 visible planets that are not the sun and the moon. So Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn, they each have their little kingdom or apartment within the sign structure.
Is there anything else on the aspects that you want to bring out with the chart? Because I've got a couple.
Well, yeah, I wanted to talk about the Venus-Mars sextile because Venus, again, it's just the beginning of this narrative of the eclipses. I know it sounds like a long way to go because the nodes are not even in Scorpio and Taurus yet, but in astrology, you see these significations being connected through some time. You know that the narrative that they are bringing about in reality with their significations are also going to be doing the same dance that they're doing. And if you see eclipses happening if you see this kind of conjunction between Mars and Venus and Capricorn and the sextile now happening in between and completely tied into the eclipses, then you know that the narrative is going to be the same. And that is, they're just going to be providing the necessary for the narrative of the eclipses to happen and develop in the way it needs to. So look at the houses that the eclipses are happening. Look at Scorpio and Capricorn right now in your chart, because the houses that the Scorpio and Capricorn dynamic is happening, especially Capricorn, are going to be the cause or the propelling motion for whatever is going to develop in the eclipses within the other two houses that the eclipses are affecting.
So if you want to bring the chart up, have you got anything to say about this? Anything more to say about that interesting yod that we've got?
Yes, and it's in a yod to Lilith.
It's the basis of it.
Yeah, you can imagine the yod here where the part of fortune is in this chart, because I didn't bring up Lilith, or I might as well just bring up Lilith. Yeah, that's the yod you were talking about, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Lilith is right there with the part of fortune, and this is a yod. You have a sextile between Mars and Venus, which forms a base, and they are both quincunx to this point here, which is Lilith. Now, you were saying before that Mars is conjunct the 12th part of Lilith as well, and a yod means that they have no classical aspect, which is an indifferent kind of relationship between 2 points. One actively ignores the other, yeah. Or tries to avoid its existence in a way, or can't see it. So while you have Mars not being able to see Lilith, it's as if we are not wanting to look at our frustrations that are completely contained in our motivations, because Mars is conjunct the 12th part of Lilith. Yeah. And so, yes, you have that base of the yod being formed by the sextile, which means for me that you have a pressure to act that is being firmed on Lilith, that's being motivated by that Lilith frustration kind of feeling. And I say frustration because it's an indifferent, again, kind of relationship between those planets. And Venus, as the planet of desires, which exalts Mars right now, is trying to give also this idea of, okay, in order to bring harmony again, I need to look to the future, which is a very Capricorn thing. I need to look at the structure that I can build now. I need to build from what I have now, thinking about how I'm going to separate from this is exalting Mars. So thinking about how I'm going to separate from this dynamic that the eclipses in Taurus are helping to bring up. That is toxic to me. That is not something that I want from me anymore in terms of being subject to someone else's laws, you know, or power.
One thing that I like within this chart as well is it's not like we're just being delivered this problem all on its own with no support. We have, right, where's looking at the chart closely, where's Mercury gone? Because my brain is, there it is, right next to the sun. There is a septile between Mercury and Venus, a modern aspect again, sorry, David, But that indicates some form of assistance from on high, especially in terms of communicating about what people love and what people are wanting with that whole, with it being Mercury, Venus, I'm assuming. But there's also several quintiles in the chart. Mars is by quintile Chiron, and also both share, I think it's by night, they share rulership under the Goetic spirit of Gares, who I haven't got a lot to say about to add this, apart from that connection is obviously there. I'm finding Chiron has been quite important in this chart. We've got the North Node quintile Neptune, so dreams of the future. We've got the Sun quintile Saturn. How can I be creative about my identity to make the changes that I am wanting while still operating within the system that's around me? Would that be a fair way to say it?
Yes, actually, yes, I would agree with that. And also, how can I even build a new system around me now that the old one has been completely dismantled and it's not available anymore? Because for many people, that's the reality after the whole pandemic thing. And this is the moment they're living. Another point is that Mercury is still under the beams of the sun, meaning that that frustration of Lilith also might have that from there, like not being able to sustain any arguments. The destabilizing qualities of Mercury are being exacerbated here. So it's always like finding a new reason to want to get away from what's being destroyed in a way that's like, ugh, I can't stand this relationship anymore. And now that I've realized it, I have to tell this person. And the more I wait, like every day that goes on without me telling this person, it becomes like a rotting piece of, trash in my heart that is just creating more pus. So I need to spill it out. I need to destabilize this now. It cannot continue in the way that it is because the pressure is too great. But that is in odds with having to take things slow, not having the necessary apparatus, not having the necessary group structure. And that's where you start seeing the flaws and becoming afraid because you see that you don't have enough. Don't let yourself fall into that lack perspective, even though it's what's being presented to you. Remember, in times of darkness, it's better to turn on the light, meaning if you feel like you're going too much to the side of anxiety, do as much as you can because you are doing enough for yourself. The anxiety is showing that you are aware of what's going on around you and you will try to work out a way to resolve it. Trust yourself, slow down your process, try to be as mindful as you can about every action that you take. I mean, every action, waking up to brush your teeth, making lunch, doing the dishes, all these things. If you try to be as mindful as you can in all these moments at this time, you're going to find a little bit more solace than trying to overwork yourself just to get through the situation as fast as you can, because that's not going to be the best course of action now that Venus is turning retrograde.
There's an interesting thing where you say about turning on the light in times of darkness. With everything that we've been saying, this internal looking at things. I just looked at the angel that's ruling the sun, which is Yael, which I'm not convinced is this card that I've got in my hand anyway, so I'm not going to bring it up to show. But interestingly, the short description I have, I mean, to a point, Yael is all about promoting wealth, fame, and success, protection while traveling. But also, I've got these three words at the top of it, saying stop fatal attraction. So just like everything that we were saying, like the Moon Mars business and the obsession that's coming out of there, the way that Lilith is highlighting these frustrations and Mars and Venus going, we need to do something about it, but we're also not looking. There's this chance to just stop doing the things that are bad for you and stop chasing after the goals that are more destructive than constructive, because you're being given with all these three quintiles, you've been given all this creative force and the septile with a little bit of guidance to go on to the good stuff. So yes, make sure you switch on that light and don't go into the black moods.
Exactly. Because we have the tendency to do that. The image that comes into my head is when you're watching a movie and they're trying to convey that the character is overburdened or overwhelmed by the things happening around them, and then they exchange cameras very quickly from one thing to the other that's bothering the native. And so it's like one kid crying here, the sink is leaking over there. There isn't someone banging on your door trying to come in and deliver you a bill that you haven't paid in 3 months. And all happening at the same time while you just broke a casserole that you were serving to your family, you know, and you're trying to clean it up. So, and the camera keeps changing from one to the other. This is one of those moments. The final result will tend to be better because Mars is in a very powerful position here. So the actions that you take now to distance yourself from the things that cause you that turmoil are going to take a hold long term. These are things that you're going to see, oh, I'm so good now that I've stopped doing that thing. It's going to be like, oh, I took a break from my relationship, from my toxic relationship. We used to fight every week. And then last week, I finally felt like I had it, like someone in a hypothetical relationship right now. And now this week of the eclipse, I'm feeling so blessed. I'm feeling like a weight has been lifted over my shoulders. And I can't explain why, but I can't have that anymore in my life. You don't explain a why yet, but you know that you realize that that other thing was weighing on you much more than you realized before because you were just going with it, you know, going along with it.
On that very note, then, I have got to tell you exactly, I just looked up for, the angel ruling Mars. So we're looking at, what are we, 13 degrees Scorpio. So that is Cahatel, who is about diffusing negative energy and divine blessings. Now, Cahatel, in Damon Brand's book, he discussed that Cahatel carries the power to drive away evil. There are many forms of evil in the world, and most are human. But if you live and work in a place that's plagued by evil spirits, this angel can drive them away. It can also work to protect you from demons if someone's cursed you using demonic powers. And it also represents the power to create a strong voice. So this standing up, this saying, hang on a minute, I feel this, whether it is right or wrong, and that will come out in the wash with this Venus retrograde and what have you, whether it is right or wrong, no one's saying, I feel this is actually wrong, because they are saying, I feel this. That reaction of feeling this may need a little fine tuning, but if they are saying what their feelings are, that's what their feelings are. And that will open that chance for debate about, well, hang on a minute, why do you feel that? Because do you know this? Or, no, you're absolutely right, crack on, let's do something about it. But the power to create a strong voice, this is one of the powers that many people will ignore, but it remains one of the most useful working with Cahatel. Although it has clear use for politicians, public speakers, and actors, it can be used by anybody to give a voice more presence. This means you are more likely to be heard when you speak. And again, that's backed up with that Mercury sextile Venus. Actually use your voice. That is part of turning the light on. You are more likely to be heard when you speak, and so long as you choose your words carefully, this can make many doors open for you. I hadn't even looked at that yet. And
you have to, I love that. And you have to really pay attention to when you don't want to speak, because Scorpio is a mute sign, and you don't have many vocal signs here right now, I think. I'm not sure if Capricorn and Taurus, I think they're semi-vocal. Still, you have the water sign being Scorpio here, containing Mercury in this lunation, and Mars in the sun. And you have this tendency of just acting on things, not necessarily sharing your thoughts. But if you're in a relationship that you treasure, that you want to maintain, even if it has been heavy lately, I think this is a good period to try and talk about it, as Dee was saying, to bring it up with your partner. it's not going to be accepted up front. You have to realize that. It's going to be a process. It's going to be something that has to become talked about over and over again. It's going to be something that is going to take months, once brought up between you two, to settle the conflict that's going to raise, that bringing up is going to raise. Because then once one thing is revealed, there is this all cascade of things that are going to follow that were not revealed behind it, that were motivating actions that were souring, basically, that were staling the relationship. So Scorpio is good because it purges out all of that. It makes you realize what trash you have been keeping inside of you because you felt like you needed to comply. And it helps you in a positive manner, especially because of Venus here and the trine relationship that Venus has to that moon there, to that lunation. It's a superior trine, which is a very favorable aspect to have by a benefic, even if it is retrograde. And they are in their own triplicities, which means there is a lot of resource assessment. You're going to understand what's really available to you and why, and you're going to understand if it's worth it. If it's worth working with the materials that you have now, or if it's better just to individuate and try to look for stability and growth elsewhere. Now, with that sextile between Venus and Mars, do try and come up with the debates. Do try and influence those debates to happen. It's necessary. Even though it's uncomfortable right now, the favorable aspects in the sky come up when you do that.
So look inside, speak out, don't expect an immediate response, but make sure you leave an avenue for creativity in how you are moving forward, because everything that you do under this eclipse will get reviewed under that Venus retrograde, won't it? So there's also, it's an eclipse, don't do any magic. It's not necessarily the best time for, as we've discussed, it's not the best time for intention setting. That would normally be a new moon anyway. But this really is a good time of looking within and looking at your feelings and then go, because sometimes that speaking out is, hey, I've got this feeling. What should I do with it? And you may get the answer from somebody, throw it away. It's not serving. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very good. That's really good.
Until you actually pick it up and take it out, you're not going to know. Is there anything else we need to conclude? Because we've been going for a while now.
Yeah, I'm just going to conclude real quick going into the modality. So cardinal signs, meaning Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, those of you who have ascendant in one of those signs are going to have this dynamic happening in your cadent houses. Is that it? No, in your succeedent houses, sorry. So it's going to be about looking into the future. It's going to be, what plannings do you have? How are you executing them long term? Do you really plan for your stability, or have you been just counting on things that now are not available to you anymore? And how can you deal with not having that stability long term? What are you going to initiate now to try and get that? So it's an inspirational time, really. It can involve death for some people because of the 8th and 2nd house axis. So if you're dealing with death in the family, inheritance, the process of moving from one city to the other, which can be second housey, you may feel like your long term is changing too fast for you to follow, but it's just a moment of adaptation. I wouldn't worry too much about it at the moment. Let's see how the Venus retrograde is going to be more interesting for you as a marker for the development of this narrative than this particular lunation. Now, the mutable signs, which is the ones on the screen now, with Sagittarius, Pisces, Gemini, and Virgo. If you have an ascendant on those, you're going to have your cadent houses activated, and this will bring maybe the necessity to travel, maybe the necessity to learn something new. Is going to be also talking about health problems with people that don't like you, and social anxiety, your own mental issues, if you have Taurus and Scorpio in this axis in particular, such as 12th and 6th houses, mental issues and physical health problems might come up for you in this time. And I would advise you to look at them carefully and to take care of them quickly, not to postpone any medical appointments you might feel you need. Even as light as it might seem, just try and start that new care for your body and for your physical structure, and to take care of your mind. You're going to need it. Now, with the fixed signs, which are Aquarius, Scorpio, Taurus, and Leo, we are going to have the eclipses happening in your angles, with a lot of the pressure of most of the planets, except for Venus, happening in those signs as well. So you are the ones getting it. You're the ones whose lives are going to be completely changed by this dynamic starting now. It's going to be either because you are in the middle of a breakup, or getting married, or moving to another country, or your parents are dead, or you were fired, or you just started a new career. All these things that are major in the long term are happening for the fixed signs most prominently. So especially for Taurus and Scorpio ascendants, relationships for you are really big right now. And the realization, especially of how your previous relationships are not satisfactory and why, and how you can be more of yourself without worrying that the other person is not going to accept you, if you are trying to tune yourself with the right kind of person, if you're not looking for the wrong kind of person still.
So again, it's that speak up, say what you feel, find out if the feeling has any validity after you've actually said it.
Yes.
Anything
and that
else?
concludes it.
Right, in which case, have you done any videos on your channel yet, David?
No, not yet. The inspiration has to come. I don't like to treat oracles as products as so much. This full moon and new moon dynamic is really good because they're social things that we can look at. It's not much of a product, but I have difficulty producing content for the internet, to be honest. And it takes me a while to be inspired on a project that I want to put out and, tell people about. So until I have that, I'm not putting out anything, but as soon as I do, you guys will be the first to know. Right.
So in which case, where can people find you if they wanted a personal reading?
You can go at my website, in the first place, astrology.com, or to my Instagram, same handle in the first place, astrology, or David Fischer is my name in each of these platforms. Facebook, I'm also available there. Through Messenger, direct message on Instagram, or my website. You can contact me through email. You just fill out a form and you're in contact with me. That easy.
All of David's details will be, as ever, down in the description by the time we've edited it and posted it. Good luck, folks. I actually think as eclipses go, there's an element of...
This one's not so bad.
Yeah, it could be worse. I mean, I did notice what you said about cardinal signs, but there's, eclipses can be worse. So yeah, that's it really. As ever, you can contact me through the Facebook page that is listed down below, or on Twitter. There's a link tree down there. And I wish you all the best. And then we go on the fantastic ride ready to the next solar eclipse. So in the meantime, see you all later.